Now we get to the general capabilities and the overall UI interactivity and approach of the MatePad Paper. And the home screen, as you've seen it by now, looks like this. On the left hand side you have your main kind of icons, and you can add some of these. So for example, if you go to apps and you long press a file, you can add it to a sidebar, and then it's going to be added to the sidebar, and then you can long press and remove it as well. You can't drag and reorganize things, and you cannot remove the default ones. Overall, this part of it is just fine. The home organization is nice because it has this option of having these, what do they call them, widgets. Yes, so you can have widgets here, and you can have easy access to your email or calendar. I'm not going to be using saved for later and this WPS thing. Saved for later thing is if you're in a Huawei ecosystem, then that's something that you can do from your Huawei phone or from a Huawei computer. You can just save it for later, and then you continue reading, and then they seamlessly articles and things actually appear here, so you can continue reading, which is great. But I'm not in a Huawei environment, so therefore I'm going to go into edit there, and then I'm just going to delete this, remove from the home screen, and I'm going to remove WPS Office from the home screen as well. This Chinese thingy is notebooks, so definitely I need that. And you can also reorganize them. So for example, I would like my notebooks to be first, right? So I want my notebooks to be on top. Then I would have my not to top email, and then my calendar or books. You know, this is like a a little puzzle in order to actually rearrange it so that you can have the other one on top. So maybe, so then if I want my books to be before my calendar but after my email, then what do I need to do? I need to go books first, then my email, and then my notebook. Yay! So then you have notebook, email, books, and calendar. Why would it have to be like that? Not really, I don't know, but it is that way. So you have that ability to reorganize your home screen, and I do like it, definitely. Notes and bookshelves you've seen in the dedicated categories. Bookstore, I'm not gonna bother with that. And you have the apps. Now, you will see the difference here with the apps. There are no Google Play apps because there's no Google Play Store here. What you do get is an app gallery, which is Huawei's app gallery, and I can only assume that if you buy this device from Germany, from a European distributor, then you will hopefully have an access to a different suite of apps, but I do not. However, you do have an option of actually importing or copying APK files onto your device. So I copied over some APKs that I exported from my phone, right? And I wanted to double check how they work and how the procedure is. So let's say I want to install Audible, and then it's going to tell you, hey, you want to install it, and it's going to check it. And if it passes a security check, you just go forward. If it doesn't, it tells you, hey, this is not blah, blah. And then, you know, whatever, you can still continue and it's fine. So you are able to install other apps that you can't find on the app gallery or whatever it's called, right? But that is not a guarantee that everything will work as expected, because not all of these things are going to work. So now I've installed several of them, and some do work as expected, some do not work as expected. So for example, I'm just going to finish installing Edge and then going to show you what I mean. So if I just go back to apps, my original attempt was to kind of make this integration of the device a little bit easier, because I really find it kind of backwards and a constant point of a problem of getting files onto the device. If you're not in a Huawei platform, it's like getting the cable in is fine, but sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Then you gotta go and plug into a different USB port until it detects it. That's not a workflow that I'm comfortable with, and I have other devices that do things that this one does, and they do them better. So I wanted to see, can I make this one fit into a non-Huawei work environment, and what is actually needed to do that. So my hope was, maybe I can install my Drive Sync right? And it's installed and I was really happy, but when I need to connect to Drive, absolutely can't do it. And it's just kind of stuck and it remains stuck there and I can never get anywhere further. All right, then I tried, okay, maybe I can install Google Drive, right? So then I tried with the Google Drive, but the version that I have is constantly crashing and it's not even able to open up. Let's see about Spotify. Will Spotify work? Spotify will not even open. It's just completely ignoring me. OneNote works. So OneNote does open. Grr, I agree. OneNote opens, but as you see, this is not working because it is not optimized. Maybe in theory, if somebody's super adventurous, they can export an optimized version of OneNote from Boox somewhere and then try and import that optimized version here and then see if those calls will work or not. But I really am not going to be doing that. I'm just going to go through normal things here. Keep Notes also doesn't even open, doesn't do anything, ignores me completely. Kindle opens. So Kindle opens and for the most part it works like you would expect it to, except that page flipping is a little bit, you know, as you've come to expect, it's a little bit off. But you do have this option of, actually I found it that if you're using the plus and minus volume rocker buttons to flip pages, you don't get that stupid kind of delayed page swipe thing, even though page swipe animations are off here, but still it works a little bit better here. And you can actually flip the formatting. You can have the dark theme as well if you want to. So let's see, layout, theme, dark, and then it works, and then you can just use it like that. And it's actually quite functional and works pretty much as you would expect it to, because it's a normal Kindle app, and in several respects it's actually working a little bit better than on Boox, because you don't have this kind of whitening out and disappearing of the icons. So Kindle works just fine. Let's see Audible. My library is empty. Well, sure as heck is not. All right, well, maybe he's like in UK, not the US version or something, but at least Audible opens up and it might work. But the smart refresh thing, not really happy with this. It's okay, but the ghosting part is like pretty strong. So some of the stuff works, some of the stuff doesn't work. Let's see if Edge works. It is possible to use other browsers as well, if you find the APK files. So support for third-party apps, even though you don't have a Google Play Store, there is a way around it, but it is convoluted and it requires a little bit of trial and error, and you're not guaranteed that all of the apps will work. For me, more apps didn't work than they did work from the ones that I regularly use and that I need, and most importantly, or most problematically, Drive Sync and Google Drive don't work, which makes it really hard for this to integrate into my existing approach. And what I'm actually kind of limited to is going to a browser and going to my Google Drive on a browser, then it works. So that was a workaround that I found, and so far that actually works okay. One of the final things is just going to settings. Yes, there's a ton of options and modes and things that you can actually do here, which is nice, but there's a ton of options that you can't use unless you're in a Huawei system, and then it takes a really long time to figure out, hey, you can do this but you can't, or you can do this but you gotta do this, and things like that. So it is quite, for me, this is a big miss. I don't like it one bit. You can access your settings also from here, so you can swipe down and go to the control panel. It's the same exact control panel. On the upper left you have your notifications, and you can manage your notifications and all of the stuff like that. So, oh yeah, and just the basic navigations. You've seen me swiping up from the right corner is your back functionality, right? So if I go back, it's going to go back, and swiping up is home. This is my home. And if you swipe up, hold, and then release, then you have your multitasking apps here and controlling and cleaning things up and yeah, dealing with all of that kind of stuff. So one really good functionality that actually applies to the overall OS is if you simply slide from the upper right gesture diagonally towards the center with the pen. So if you slide that, you will get these two options, split screen note and annotate. If you choose annotate, you are actually able to write on anything here, and then you can save that as a screenshot or share it as an image or as a PDF. So this is something that's actually quite useful and can overcome some of the limitations that you do see if you're working on a single page. As such, it's actually cool because you can open up a website, for example, and then annotate that, or maybe review I don't know, just a layout of a design of some sort and make notes that way, and you have a pen control over here to choose your standard pen options. The other option that you have is actually split screen note, and this if you try it like this, it actually works in best in conjunction with the reader on one side and notes on the other. So for example, I can just go into the geography of Mars. I want to continue writing in my test page here. This split mode really works well. So this is a really cool way of doing these things. However, to my knowledge, I don't think that it's possible to actually associate a notebook with this document in any way, which is something that you can do on other devices and platforms. So that part is lacking, but as far as the functionality itself goes, I think that this is a very good one. Especially if we're talking about, again, professional meeting, business type of an environment, because you may have like a presentation, PPT that was converted to a PDF or something, and you have that on one side here, and on the other side you have note-taking capabilities here, audio taking with the tags and all of these things. So this mode alone is extremely powerful to actually kind of use all this. Then again, it is not completely new, because if we're being fair, you do have the same type of functionality and same type of power with the Neo Reader and the Boox platform itself, more specifically with the Boox Note Air 2. So there's that as well. But if this is the device that you're taking into consideration, then this is absolutely an important one to keep in mind, and it works rather well. That's basically the overall functionality of the Huawei Harmony OS. You have your Bluetooth, you have your Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth worked fine, Wi-Fi works fine. I didn't have any problems regarding that. So pretty much all of these things are fairly standard. The only thing that I honestly have a problem with is that the settings are pretty much all over the place, and that one I can't get used to. It's an okay platform, but it does take time to get used to, which is a negative thing. But on the positive side, it does grow on you after a while, but it's a fairly slow process. But then again, you get the flipbook cover, you get the device, you get the M2 pen, you get pretty much everything that you've seen on this review. You get all of that for that price. In order to actually match this, like what you get with other devices, you will need to actually spend a little bit more to get an equivalent, unless you snag a deal, for example, with the Boox Note Air 2 Plus. But then again, when you actually go down to Boox Note Air 2, which is also an excellent device, that one is $420 with a pen, and if you want to add a cover, then you're still under $500 plus tax and shipping, depending where you're at. So in that regard, Boox Note Air 2 is actually a bit of a better value than the MatePad Paper, yet they perform very similarly as far as the writing latency, battery consumption, battery time, and the feature sets are extremely similar, yet Boox platform does offer a little bit more, especially in the reading side of things, offers quite a bit more than this one. And also you have a full Android experience and a full open Google Play compatibility, which opens up things quite a bit more and adds a little bit more to the value for that money. So for less money, you get a bit more in the Boox Note Air 2 department, for example. Then again, if we switch over to the Remarkable, then it really depends how you spec it out. But again, when you add a cover folio, you get a pen, and let's say you get a pen with an eraser and all of these kinds of things, you are going to be approaching the $500 mark again with that device as well. But on that one, you actually have a much more limited platform overall, but you get some other things that MatePad Paper doesn't have, for example. And finally, you have the Supernote, which when fully spec'd out does cross over that $500 or euro mark, which makes it fairly pricey. But then again, you do get quite a lot of features and functionalities, especially with the latest updates that were added, which actually make that platform fairly powerful. So I think if you're comparing like Remarkable 2 and the Supernote with the MatePad Paper, this one is giving them a run for their money. But the problem is when Boox Note Air 2 comes into play, not the 2 Plus, but the Note Air 2 when it comes into play, and when you compare it to this one, MatePad Paper simply doesn't offer enough to justify that price. And as usual, let's start with the cons. The first con is the most obvious con for me, and that is the front light itself. That, I think, is a very big problem on this device, simply because at this price range, you have other devices that offer far superior front light quality, capabilities, and things like that. So the lack of the warm light and the lack of customizability of that front light is definitely a con. The second con for me would be very limited reader capabilities or formatting capabilities and inconsistency, especially with PDFs. With EPUBs, it's just fine. But with PDFs, as you've seen, some PDFs can be reflowed, some PDFs cannot be reflowed, and even when you do reflow them, you can't take written notes. And even if you can take written notes in your regular PDF, you can't properly export it out of this kind of environment, and it just makes it kind of locked in and fairly limited. Another con for me would be the locked-in system of the Huawei Harmony OS. If you own a Huawei phone and a Huawei laptop or something like that, then I'm absolutely certain that this device is going to slot right in and will offer a vastly superior experience to what I have experienced. But at a price range of 500 euros, and when competing with the likes of Boox and Supernote and Remarkable, for example, all of which have this very flexible integration ecosystems that you can, the whole point is that you can just slot your new device into any work environment that you have. Huawei really fails to do that tremendously so. So as soon as you extract it from the Huawei environment that they're trying to push onto the user, and I am not going to accept that, nor should you want to accept that, this device needs to slot into your existing workflow capabilities, and it fails to do so. So much so that the regular things that you need to do, like transferring data onto the device, becomes like a very dated chore using only the wired cable, or if you're lucky and you manage to get the Bluetooth data connectivity to work, though that's fairly unsafe, so I don't really recommend doing that. So basically you're left with either using your browser to access one of the cloud storage systems so that you can get the data that way, or using the cabled connection. And that one is not super, let's say, consistent, because more often than not, I would just plug it in and nothing happens. Then you need to plug out the USB cable from the computer, try another port, or try plug it in again until you actually get the notification pop up to offer the data communication with the computer. And then it's fine. Then it behaves like any other Android device. But at 500 euros and what the competition actually actually offers, that's simply not enough. This also leads me to the next con, which is the Harmony OS itself. It is very limited. Yes, true, while you can sideload APKs, so other downloadable applications from the Google Play Store, you are by no means guaranteed that those apps will function in the Harmony OS 2 environment at all. And as you've seen, only a handful of the apps that I actually needed in order to integrate the system or this tablet into my current workflow, only a handful of them worked, but the most key of them did not work. The AutoSync, the Google Drive, none of them actually worked. Even Spotify didn't work. Now, if you buy this from Huawei Germany and you get a Germany or European version of the device, do you get access to an altogether app gallery, I think they're calling it? And do you have an access to altogether different apps? That, at the moment, I really don't know, because as I mentioned, the one that I have here is from China and is for Chinese market. So maybe that is the case for that isolated case scenario only, and maybe this con is significantly lower if you buy it in the European. I don't know that. However, what I do know is that if you do run into the case that you don't have an app in the app gallery, regardless of which region it is meant for, you are again going to face the same issue, which is you're going to have to try and offload APKs from your Android device, somehow transfer them onto the MatePad Paper, and then sideload them and then see which one of them will work, which one of them will not work, and how will they function. So that is definitely another con for the overall MatePad Paper experience. And another con for the MatePad Paper would be the build quality. For the price, I would expect it not to have bends and kind of irregularities so that it doesn't stand on the table properly and that one corner is going a little bit up. That is something that's not that small of a thing, because while I was writing and using it, if it's out of the cover, which is the way I prefer to use it, yeah, I was constantly feeling the device kind of bending on this corner because it's lifting off the table itself. And to me, that's simply not good enough at this price range. If it was significantly cheaper, then I would be able to attribute it, well, okay, it's a little bit cheaper, so it has that kind of thing. But again, Boox Note Air 2 doesn't have that problem, and it's cheaper, so build quality is also not that great on the MatePad Paper. And finally, the con, I think, would be also the price. While it does seem reasonably priced, on the paper, yes, it does, and it does offer a lot. However, when you compare it to its biggest nemesis, which is the Boox Note Air 2, not the Plus version, the Note Air 2, which is around $420 with pretty much most of the stuff on if you find a deal for it, well, then that price becomes a very big problem, because why would I actually choose this device over the Boox Note Air 2, which has pretty much exactly the same specifications? It runs on Android 11, it has a very powerful battery, it has Google Play Store on it, it has far more capabilities. Yes, it doesn't have the audio tags themselves, but it has a very similar type of functionality that you can actually replicate all of that. And at that point, it's like, what are the obvious benefits of the MatePad Paper when it's compared to the Boox Note Air 2? That's a very big problem for this device. And now onto the pros of the MatePad Paper. And I'm going to start off with the design, especially this white version. That's the reason why I went for the Chinese version, because it's only for the China market at the moment. Hopefully they'll introduce it for the European market as well. I really love the design of it. The materials are very nice, it's very pleasant to the touch, and it's very, very well thought out, and it's a nice, pleasant device actually to use. Another pro for me, a big one, is the weight. At 360 grams, it really just feels so good and easy to use, and it's for a 10.3-inch device, it's extremely comfortable to use because of that weight and all of the rounded edges and things like that. So it's a very, very pleasant device all around. Another pro is definitely the efficiency of the battery use. Even though it has a 3625 milliamp battery, the life expectancy and the standby time and the writing and the reading experience are both exceptionally good on the MatePad Paper. Overall, I really do like the pen, and I think that's a pro. It is a simple, minimalistic approach. The design is deceptive because it feels and writes way more precise, and it's way more comfortable than what you would think it is just based on the looks. The craftsmanship is excellent, the materials are very nice, especially if you prefer metal under your hand. I don't, but overall I do know that some people do. It's balanced perfectly well, it functions well, it has an excellent magnet, wireless charging, doesn't really fail while I'm using it, so overall, the pen is definitely a plus. Writing experience on the MatePad Paper is also definitely a plus. It's very comfortable, it's fast, and it's sensitive enough so that it really, really works well. Now, it doesn't have drawing capabilities because you don't really have proper drawing brushes. Yes, it has a pencil, but it doesn't really work. It's like on the books. It's not really for that. This is for writing, and for writing it works really, really well. But more importantly are the notebooks and the notebook experience overall. Aside from the con that you don't have the ability to add your custom templates, which I think is rather odd that you kind of overlook that feature, but the overall functionality of the notebooks is so well crafted. It's like a complete opposite from the reader experience, which is for me mainly negatives. There's very, very few positives in the reader experience, but a note-taking on the side is actually really, really good, extremely functional, and as a note-taking device, as a memo-taking device, as a work device to just simply take notes during meetings, audio recordings, and things like that, the functionality of the MatePaper basically seems like it's suited specifically for that type of use, and as such, it really does excel in that kind of environment. The overall UI, while it is a little bit of a steeper climb, like of a learning curve to get used to, you do get used to these things. And once you start actually customizing things and using the email, using your Google Calendar or whatever calendar service you may have, and kind of starting to customize it to your own needs, it does grow on you, and it does become a comfortable user environment, and more importantly, a productive user environment. I do like the swipe from the upper right corner to actually get the split screen functionality and some other functionalities. I like the double tap on the pen. So overall, some of the concepts, again, note-taking concepts, and just for note-taking, this whole environment is really, really good. The reader stuff, as I said, is really bad, but overall, the user environment, you can get used to it, and while it's not perfect, it has, I think, more pros than cons to actually make it a good user interface overall when you get used to it. So there is that kind of caveat to keep in mind. And finally, the flipbook cover. I do like how it is designed. It's practical, you can use the device normally inside of it, and it's elegant, it's stylish, and it just suits the device very, very nicely. But then again, on Boox Note Air 2 Plus, for example, you have pretty much the identical thing, so that's something to keep in mind as well. All right, so it's time to summarize the Huawei MatePad Paper. And overall, I think that as a note-taking device and memo-taking device, I think MatePad Paper is exceptionally good at those things. As a reader, it really does lack quite a bit of functionalities here, and coupled with the front light that's very, very limited, this is something where I think MatePad Paper falls short. As an overall tablet and a workhorse that just simply integrates into your work environment, this is another area where MatePad Paper actually fails unless you are already fully in the Huawei ecosystem. Then it actually integrates into that very, very well. I am led to believe by what I've seen so far. I haven't tried it personally, but that's something that I can see from other reports and reviews and things like that. But you know, at this price range, this device needs to be flexible enough to integrate into any workflow in any environment, and MatePad Paper fails to do so quite hard. As much as I like the pen, the weight of it, the battery performance, all of it, I really do like a lot of it. The main problem for MatePad Paper is the Boox Note Air 2. It tries to compete really, really well. It really does. And it almost succeeds, but it fails on several key fronts. And for me personally, if I had to choose between the MatePad Paper and the Boox Note Air 2, I wouldn't even blink at all, knowing what I know now and having lived with this one. I would choose the Note Air 2, but I would wish that the MatePad Paper was better, that it was able to integrate into non-Huawei environment better, that it had a better reader capabilities, and that it could fix some of these key issues. If it could do that, then I think it would be worth the price difference and it would be able to justify its price. As it is right now, those limitations are fairly severe and are actually a deal breaker for me, unless they actually fix all of these things on MatePad Paper, at which point it would be worth actually revisiting the platform and seeing if this thing actually changes. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe and ding the notification bell in the description down below to get notified when new videos come out on my deep guide. Also, post the comments down below and join the discussion to tell me what you think of the MatePad Paper, what your impressions are, if you have the device or not, so that other users can have as much perspective and as broad of a perspective as possible on the device when trying to make a purchasing decision. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you in the next video. Bye.